Greetings again, friends. It's time for a semester ending in other news. Although, I'll keep it up if you like, even though the semester's done. If you folks still want to tune in and hear me talk about certain select current events that have struck my fancy for the week or whatever the time period is, please holla at me or just make comments down here. I'll keep going over the holiday winter break if anybody's interested. But let me get to it and do it. The thing that's in other news of note to me that I'm doing upon request because it's actually not a hidden story. A lot of people are hearing about it, and a lot of current students and former students keep hitting me up asking me, Boyer, can it be so? Is Vladimir Putin in trouble? Yes, that's the in other news I'd like to talk about for just a few minutes today. It appears that once unshakable, unflappable, unstoppable Iron Man superhero himself, Vladimir Putin, is in some, not trouble, but the confidence level in him has eroded completely unexpectedly and rapidly just in the last couple weeks. And so I felt it was worthy to kind of clue you in onto the reality of the situation a little bit. like I'm hanging out in Red Square and I know the reality. But you know me, I've got a finger on the pulse of what's going on here. And I kind of wanted to make sure that people understood he ain't going anywhere. All right, for starters, what am I talking about? I think we can do this one briefly, but I say this all the time. This was reported on during the semester a few weeks back. It was on November 21st, I believe, that Putin went to and for those of you completely clueless, we're talking about the main man in Russia, Vladimir Putin, once president, now prime minister. He was president of Russia from 2000 to 2008. He's beloved, all right, while he was president. Then he became prime minister from 2008 to the present. He, under his guidance and with the assistance of his political operatives within the government, got the Russian constitution changed to allow for him to run again for president. And they changed the presidential term from 4 years to 6 years, which is how he's getting around the 2-year term limit that they used to have. They haven't changed the term limit, but they actually changed the length of the limit. So it went from 4 years to 6 years, and because it changed, then it reactivated him for eligibility again. So he's running for president again this year, and now it's a 6-year term, and he might be eligible to serve 2 more of those terms, so he could be in office for 12 more years if things go his way. Now let's get down to, okay, what happened? Because he's been wildly popular in Russia, and he has been an action man of adventure on planet Earth for going on a decade now. He's done everything from shooting Siberian tigers to scuba diving in Lake Baikal, the world's deepest lake, and he's a black belt in judo and has been on every single aircraft and motor craft and every vehicle ever produced he's been in and on and done, and he really is a legend in his own time, and that's rare for anybody to live up to that, but he is. I mean, he's a legend while he's still alive. He has routinely enjoyed popularity ratings in the 70, 80, and 90% brackets in Russia. At least that's what's been reported. And now this is what makes this whole current event story very fascinating, because this is what's taken everybody by surprise, including myself, I'm not going to lie. I like to think that I have a finger on the pulse and can predict stuff that's going on, but I would not have predicted this. So what happened was that it's kind of been known. Everybody's been walking around saying, yes, they changed the Constitution. Yes, he's going to run for office again. And his approval ratings were still at 60 and 70% while he's been prime minister. And he's a strong leader who has, kind of overseen Russia's transition from a crappy former world power back up to world power status. That's, again, one of the reasons why he's beloved. But what happened was, everybody knows he's running again. They kind of formally announced it about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I believe, before this booing incident. I believe that the United Russia Party announced that he would be their candidate, and United Russia is the political party. It's like saying the Democrats are Republicans. It's the United Russia Party, and it is Putin's party. It's current President Dmitry Medvedev's political party. It's the political party that has controlled the Russian Congress or Parliament lock, stock, and barrel pretty much for a decade. I mean, they control they have most of the Congress people, they control the presidency and the prime ministership. It is Russia's premier political party that has routinely had 70, 75, 80% of the people vote for this party. To the point that it really has become almost what we call a one-party state, because there's really no other contenders who can even throw up a real challenge to this political party. Okay, anyway, now that I've burned 5 minutes, back to current events. So it was announced that United Russia says, yes, Putin's going to be our man. Even Dmitry Medvedev came out and said, yes, I'm not going to even stand for my second term. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and get ahead of the story a little bit. I think maybe that's part of what pissed people off, is Dmitry Medvedev said, I'm not going to compete with Vladimir Putin. We are in the same political party. I'm actually going to step down. I am not going to run for a second term of president, which he completely legally could have. He took himself out of the running. And I think this pissed people off, and here's why. I think it made people who thought he was a puppet be completely convinced Dmitry Medvedev has been a puppet this whole time. He's been a pretty popular leader, too. He has done pretty well. He has had some different opinions of Vladimir Putin since he's been in the presidency position for about 4 years now. He has helped push for Russia forward. He's tried to clean up corruption. He's tried to bring in business. He's done a lot. And for him to now just suddenly step aside, I think, confirms what a lot of people believe, not necessarily me, but a lot of people have believed, that he's been nothing but a hand puppet for Putin this whole time. And I gotta admit, even though I like Medvedev and I like Putin, it does feed into that. It's like, dude, what? Come on, man. You were a successful president. You should have at least ran. You should have let the party decide that, you know, that they were going to put up Putin instead of you. So it really feeds into this. This whole thing's a scam and a sham, and Putin controls everything. And again, I think that's part of the popular backlash. Now let's get to the backlash finally. November 21st, Putin shows up to a wrestling match. I don't think it was a real wrestling match. I think it's like Worldwide Wrestling Federation, WWF, you know, Hulk Hogan, the whole fake wrestling stuff, I think. I'm not Russian, I don't know, but that's what it looked like. And so he showed up to one of these matches, as he's prone to do. He's been in the public eye very intentionally. He has awesome marketers who have him doing all this manly stuff 24/7 all the time. He shows up at events and does crazy stuff. And showed up at this wrestling match and got up in the ring to declare the winner, I think, and do like a summary speech at the end of the event. And he got booed. See, I've taken 7 minutes now just to say that Putin got booed, but that's what started all this. He got booed for the first time in a decade, or maybe the first time in his life, for all I know. I'm assuming if he ever got booed before, that all the people who did the booing are all now pushing up daisies. So he got booed at this very public format that the Putin people couldn't control. They actually tried to control it. They tried to spin it. And the reports that came out immediately were, oh, no, the people weren't booing Putin. They were booing the wrestler who won, that Putin was holding his hand up. And that was a huge mistake. Dude, how many politicians have to screw up on Twitter, screw up on their Facebook, screw up in life, and then try to cover it up after they screwed up publicly? It's a huge titanic mistake every time. You can't, in this age of communications, one of the best things about it is you can't lie publicly anymore. I mean, politicians in America keep trying to do it. But once you said something in public or done something or pulled your pants down or sent someone a picture of your private parts publicly, you can't take it back. Too many people can grab it and see it too fast. And this is a, case in point. This happened publicly with people there recording it on their cell phones, talking about it, news reporters there. And so for the Putin people to try to spin it was a huge mistake. And I think that started the snowball rolling. So he got booed for whatever reasons. And maybe I'll get to that as a summary. Maybe people are discontent. Maybe they didn't like the wrestling match. Who the hell knows? But them trying to cover it up at the same time that Dmitry Medvedev is stepping down, and I think it's just feeding into this bigger public consensus in Russia now that people are like, dude, this guy does have the fix in. And you know what? People don't like it when they don't have choices. They don't like knowing about the fix. He is a popular leader, and he has done wonders for Russia. But when even someone that's popular and awesome and wonderful, if they're rigging the game too much, people don't like that. I've got to admit, I don't like that either. So to follow up the rest of the current events on this, they had a election on December 4th, not a presidential election, but again, kind of like a major congressional election cycle was up. And the United Russia Party, Putin's party, Medvedev's party, the main political party, in Russia was expected to win most seats, and they did. Here's the kicker, though. They lost seats overall. They still hold, like, I don't know the numbers. You can go Google it. I think they still hold somewhere on the order of about half, 50% of the seats in Congress or Parliament, whatever the Russians call it. The United Russia Party's candidates still hold half. They still have, I believe, a majority overall. They certainly have the biggest percentage of any other political party. But the fact remains that a whole bunch of their candidates they expected to win lost. I don't know the numbers, but this time 2 months ago, United Russia held like 70% of the congressional seats. Now they lost enough that they're only down to about 50%, maybe 48, 49, or 50%. So this is actually an overall loss for the United Russia Party, even though they still technically won most seats in the elections that were being held. Does that make sense? And that is a big deal. Now, more current events. People in Russia are inflamed, at least a lot of them, because a lot of folks say that this election that happened on December 4th was rigged. And so now you have street protests that have occurred not just in Moscow, but in small satellite cities across this ginormous country, biggest country on planet Earth. Even as far afield as the far, far east, there were some folks that went out protesting in small little cities. And this has taken Russia and the world by shock. I, myself included. It's cold there, man. You're not going out on the streets and protesting in this place, mostly because of the weather, but also, too, most people have not shown an inclination to protest about anything. And 3, most people would probably be scared to protest about anything, even if they had an inclination. So the fact that this has gone forward, and the election was December 4th, these protests have cropped up in the 8th, the 9th, and 10th. I think there's still small protests occurring right now. And so this is, to me, a very big deal, and it's kind of making a big deal in the world press in that this is just something that does not happen. This is a society that, by any stretch of the imagination, we would not call wildly pro-democracy, that most Russians are prone to voting for a strong central leader. They just are. They always have been. They kind of like that stability. They've shown it time and time again in all elections. They like strong centralist leaders who just do it. So you put all this together, and again, it's kind of quite shocking this is occurring right now. Oh, and on top of that, Vladimir Putin has been wildly popular. So all of these things together work against any sort of big public reaction, but there it is. It's happened, and it's exploded. And people are upset. A lot of folks are now convinced that the whole election process was a fraud and a sham, and that they stuffed the ballot boxes to get the United Russia Party to win the seats that they have. Now, before I go any further, I'm going to give you my personal opinion, which I do all the time. I actually can't see that this election was fraudulent. And for very simplistic reasons. That I just assess these things. I was not in Siberia counting votes personally. I do not know this, but I just look at common sense. If you rig something or you cheat at something, you usually win. So I have a hard time believing that the United Russia Party under Putin's guidance wildly cheated on the election when they pretty much lost the election. Again, relatively speaking, they lost overall. So if you cheat at something, you cheat and you win. So I'm not sure I buy the fraudulent election stuff. I think it's, again, part of the bigger kind of sentiment that's just exploding in the society now of that that everything is fixed. That this guy perhaps does have too much power. And even though we've liked him and he's done good and the country's done well under his leadership for a decade, that we don't like the fix being in this deeply. We don't like having no choice at all. We don't like the outside world kind of blowing us off, saying they're undemocratic. It's a one-party state. That all the Russians are a joke. They're just voting for this dictator. I think that it's a public sentiment thing. I think that people are just kind of not unhappy about Russia itself, but unhappy about this particular guy, this particular place, and this particular political party, which now holds too many of the cards. Got it? So democracy is springing forth a little bit, I think, on the Russian population to say, no, this is getting out of hand. We need to pull back. This guy's got too much power, and so does his political party. And that's a democracy in action. You can call Russia anti-democracy or undemocratic, but that's what democracies do. People go protest. People go vote for the other guy, and that's exactly what just happened here. So you can say this is a bad day, a bad election cycle for Putin, a bad election cycle for the United Russia Party, but for me, it sounds like it's a pretty good day for democracy in Russia. The kind of sum up to all this is that there are some folks who now have been empowered to perhaps challenge Putin. And that's a good thing for democracy too. Namely, one guy named Mikhail Prokhorov. Mikhail, maybe some of you know, is the owner of the New Jersey Nets. He's an ultra billionaire, like worth $18 to $20 billion. And he may have the resources and now the empowerment by the people to run against Putin in the presidential election. Again, the election that just held was a congressional election. It's not the presidential election. That's not till next year. So this guy has said, I have stated ambitions. I think I'm going to run for president, from another political party, not the United Russia Party. And lo and behold, this could be a threat